George gets settled. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. So this is really fun. So my name's Jeff Sinabaldo. If you don't know me, I was the intern here 2000-2001, and I was associate pastor here with Pastor Carter 2003 to 2010. And I talked to Pastor Carter earlier this week. He'll be here next week. So this is the reunion show part one. I'm just the warm-up guy. But the main event is next week when Pastor Carter's here. So do tell everybody. I know he'd be happy to see you as much as I am as well. So good to be with you. I don't know if you followed the youth gathering at all, but I'm sure they'll have plenty of stories to tell. But I've been watching it online, and what a wonderful event. So lots of really good things going on in the church, especially in the lives of our young people. And especially these days when we wonder what's going on with that, lots of vibrancy there. You just got to look to see where it is. So we're in good hands. So with that, why don't we start? Oh, I have one more thing. I don't mean to be rude at the end of worship. But here's the thing. So I am kind of triple booked today. Because that's kind of how I roll, I guess. But anyway, so those who know me know that already. So I'm with you. I didn't want to say no to being with you. I'm really looking forward to being with you this morning. I've got a wedding I got to run off to as soon as worship's over, so I'll shake your hands, but then I got to zip out. It's also our daughter Mia's birthday today, so we've got that going on as well, and probably something else. So how old she is? She's 19. So she was born when she was here. So time marches on, certainly. But you all haven't aged, but I have. So that's what we do. All right, why don't we begin? We'll start with confession and forgiveness. You'll find that in your worship folder, and I invite you to stand as you are. The Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, O Lord.
The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. Jesus said to them, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourself and rest a while." Many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As Jesus went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. When they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret and moored the boat. When they got out of the boat, people at once recognized him and rushed about that whole region and began to bring the sick on mats to wherever they heard that he was. And wherever he went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. Well, grace and peace to you on this day from God our Father and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Good to be with you. Good to see all your faces here this morning. A couple of phrases I want to pull out of here that really strike me in kind of all these readings. There's this whole idea of what's far off and what's near. Paul mentions that in Ephesians. There's coming and going. That's the people who are all around that are coming to Jesus. And then it's the apostles who cross over with Jesus to go on to the mission as it continues on. And it's all centered around this other theme, though. It's centered around Jesus having compassion on them. And what does that compassion look like? Jesus teaches them many things. And he heals them. They bring them, even on mats, just so they can even touch his cloak. By extension, because you've heard the Gospels before, he forgives people, right? He welcomes people to come and join them. He builds this community together. He leads them out. That's what a shepherd does. They're people without a shepherd, and he's come to be the good shepherd. Not just for them, but for all of us as well. We hear about what the Good Shepherd is like as Jesus describes that in John's Gospel, another reading for another time, where he says, the sheep, I know them by name, and they hear my voice and I lead them out. It's all about movement, isn't it? And he talks about the hired hand who will run away at the first sign of danger. Jeremiah seems to kind of call that out, what bad shepherds are like. But what's a good shepherd do? A good shepherd protects the sheep. A good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Then Jesus later says, I'm the good shepherd. I lay down my life for the sheep, for you, for me, that I might take it up again. That's what all this coming and going, people from far and wide and near, and crossing over is all about. That's what the mission of Jesus is doing. Right? We get really hung up sometimes on getting people to church. Can we just get to church? Did you go to church? You did. You're here. You're online. Right? You made it. Phew, made it this week, right? But what's it about? It's about being the church together, so that in all of our comings and goings and crossing overs and being far and being near from each other, in all of that, what is it about? It's about showing people Jesus. It's about having that same compassion that Jesus offers to us. And what does he do for us? Right? He calls us by name. He heals us. He teaches us many things. He forgives us, right? He gives us his life as our very own, dying and rising and taking it up again, so that you and I have life. And you look at the world around us and you say to yourself, self, holy smokes, what a mess, right? And you look at our culture and our society and you scratch your head and you say, what on earth is going on here? And you see everything is always about who's in and who's out, and who's bad and who's good, and who I'm with and who I'm not with, and why the other side is wrong because I must be right if they're wrong. And it just gets all a little bit much sometimes, doesn't it? But what's Jesus invite us to here? He invites us to compassion. He invites us to cross over, not on our own, thanks be to God, to cross over with him to the other side, where the mission continues, where there's teaching, healing, and forgiveness, and invitation, and hope, right? So when I first read this passage for this Sunday, I noticed something. Maybe you, as astute Bible scholars yourselves, noticed this also this morning. You'll notice, if you just look in your worship folder at the text, it jumps. There's like a lot of missing verses in there. And you say to yourself, why is that not in there? What are we not hearing about here? Is there something controversial they didn't want us to know about? Or is there something else going on? Well, nothing controversial. It's the feeding of the 5,000 story. He's with the disciples. He's hearing about all the things that they've heard and seen and done. Because if you remember back a chapter ago, he sent them out ahead of him to go to these surrounding towns. They're coming back. He invites them to the other side. The part we miss is him feeding the 5,000. And you say, why would we skip that? It's such a beautiful story with these 5 loaves and 2 fish and an abundance for everybody. And then they cross over to the other side to go to the next place where they recognize him and the ministry continues. Well, I don't think there's any big conspiracy theories here. You're going to hear about the feeding of the 5,000 and I am the bread of life for the next 5 weeks. So this is just a way to kind of set this up, I think, from the lectionary people. But here's what's going on here. It's the mission in movement, right? It's coming, it's crossing over, it's coming and going. And we all do that in our lives. I mean, heck, I've been coming and going out of here for years with you guys. So that's all just a big part of it. And we also interact with all the other people in our lives, our families, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, our classmates, people down the street that drive you bonkers, right? All of those things. And what are we supposed to do? Well, we're supposed to show people Jesus in our lives. It's about taking that step to cross over, even if it's a little bit scary sometimes. When I read that phrase crossed over this week, it reminded me of a book I read a number of years ago. I had to look it back up. It's called The Unlikely Disciple by a guy named Kevin Roos. Maybe some of you have read it. It's an autobiography. At the time he wrote it, he was a student at Brown, and he was studying journalism. He wanted to be a reporter. So he comes from Brown University, Ivy League, elite, let's just call it what it is. Pretty liberal, right? Secular, all those things. That's kind of his background. And all of his friends at the beginning of the book are going to be going on study abroad trips. So they're going to go to fun places like Europe and South America and Australia and Africa and Asia and all these wonderful places to do something different, to kind of learn how to be a global citizen and come back and be a student again, which is great. But he decides to do something else. He decides to do a cross-cultural exchange at home, kind of in his backyard. So from Rhode Island, he decides to go to Virginia, and he decides to enroll for a semester at Liberty University. Now, if you know anything about Liberty, it's pretty much the exact opposite of Brown. It is very conservative, evangelical, probably fundamentalist in a lot of ways, very strict, and just to call a thing what it is, kind of on the right side of things. So he decides he's going to go there, and he's a journalist. He's going to write up what his experience is going to be there. He crosses over and goes to that place. And some remarkable things happen. He goes to class, as you would expect. He lives in a dorm. He makes friends. He gets involved in stuff. Now he's, secular progressive kid from New England. What does he do? He joins a Bible study. He learns how to pray. He ends up going to the church where Jerry Falwell, who's the president of the school, is the pastor. He goes there every week and kind of immerses himself in this experience. And he is expecting to be appalled, right? He's expecting for everybody to be wrong. And what he learns, actually, over the course of his time with them is these are kids kind of like him, right? They got hopes and dreams. They've got plans. They've got a lot of struggles. They've got failures. They're living life. They want to belong, right? They want to have a purpose for their lives. And you get to kind of see him go through this, I don't know if I'd call it transformation, but an opening up of what it means for him to really cross over and go into this place kind of openly and honestly. At the end of the book, Jerry Falwell died, so that's about the time frame this happened. That's several years ago. And it's going to be the time for the funeral. And all of his friends are going to go, and there's all these people from around the country who are going to go. And it's going to be this big televised event and everything. And he's talking to his father on the phone. And his dad just asked him, well, after a semester there, what do you think about Jerry Falwell? We see what we see on the news about him. You had him there at school. What do you think? And his answer, I think, was pretty brilliant. It's complicated. That's what he told his dad. And then he went to the funeral. And if you think about the world in which we live, and the world we live is very much a place where people run around like sheep without a shepherd. And we try to replace it with just about anything to try to find a direction to go. And it always seems very empty when we do that. What's going to happen, right? And we're not just simple people. We like things in nice little containers. We want bad guys and good guys and the people I agree with and the people I disagree with because we know then that they're bad and I'm okay. Over here, we put these big walls around us just to kind of make sure that we kind of protect ourselves, right? But what happens when we break that down a little bit and get to know people? Actually try to understand how they think and go about things. Actually try to, do what Jesus did. Exercise some compassion. We get to learn that they're human beings, just like us. And what I think Jesus is doing in this particular gospel for us is inviting us into that a little bit, especially in our world today and the way in which we live, which is all over the place. How can we be those people of compassion who do know who our good shepherd is? How can we go about our days and our weeks where we, invite people into conversation, where we provide in some way some kind of understanding, or at least not that we blanket just say it's okay if it's something we strongly disagree with, but to be able to hear somebody that has a different point of view. Couldn't that be a place where this ministry of healing and forgiveness and welcome and hope starts to take shape in us and in the people around us. I think Jesus is inviting us into that. So what I've been doing the last a few years now, I'm going to be starting year 5, is I teach high school at Notre Dame High School in West Haven. I teach freshman religion class, which is really in the Gospels. And I will be honest with you, I mean, I had a little bit of reservations going in. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I know I like kids and hanging out with them, but I didn't know, are they going to accept this Lutheran there, you know? And I certainly had preconceived ideas of what that was going to be. I mean, I've been a Lutheran my whole life. I was taught, you know, but they're Catholic. Like, that was like a thing, right? Watch yourself. And I've not found that to be true at all. I mean, people, what are we about? We're trying to connect with these kids with some compassion and grace and try to teach them who the Good Shepherd is and what that might mean for their lives. What about you? I mean, you cross over into different places in your lives all the time, whether you're thinking about it or not, just because you have interactions with different kinds of folks, right? How can we point to the Good Shepherd in our lives, the one who brings healing and forgiveness and new life to all of us who follow him, who he calls our names, and he leads us out. Now, in the first few decades of the church, the big controversy, of course, is what do we do with all these Greeks and Romans, because they're not Jewish like us? What's that going to mean for us as followers of Jesus? Are they in or are they out? And thankfully, I would say for all of us and for the world, they discern that no, Jesus really is trying to be the shepherd for us all, to call all of us by name and lead us out, to have compassion on all of us in our sin and brokenness and lead us to new life. But that's not without controversy, that's not without division, that's not without violence. And thankfully, somebody like Paul came along who wrote about that in this piece to the Ephesians that we heard just a little bit ago. That it's not about the walls that we build up around ourselves. And it's not even about how good of a job we do about crossing over and reaching the other side. It's about what Christ, our Good Shepherd, does. He's the one that breaks the walls down. He's the one that ends the hostility between us. He's the one that puts us into a new kind of community. He's the one that gives us hope, because he, and only he, is our peace. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning this morning, I was the intern here in the year 2000. Now, if I've got the math right, it being 2024, that means that was 24 years ago, right? Accountants in the room, right? We got that. Okay, good. Okay, good. Thanks, Rob. I'm 48. So if that was 24 years ago and I'm 48, that means that was literally half my lifetime ago. There's lots of comings and goings we've had over the years. It was fun to come back here in January. It was fun to come back for all those years as an associate pastor. It was fun to be interacting with you at synod events and ordinations and stuff like that. We keep coming in and out and crossing over in our lives. Maybe you have been a person that has spent a good chunk of your life here. Maybe you've spent more time here than me. Maybe it's your first day and you just wanted to check out what this St. Matthew place was all about. I look forward to the next time we interact, because then I will I can say already now, right? I've known most of you, a lot of you, half of my life. I've known this ministry half of my life. I've known this sacred space half of my life. And I know for all of you that this is a place we hold dear and important. And why is that? It's because here we hear the voice of our Good Shepherd calling our name. In all our comings and goings and ins and outs, and sometimes far and sometimes near, and hopefully all of our crossing overs from one thing to the next, this Good Shepherd continues to call our name and lead us. And we do that here together, right? Here's my invitation for you. In these next days, weeks, months, however long it is, till the next time I see you, here's your invitation. Your invitation is to cross over somewhere. Some interaction you have with somebody. Maybe it's somebody you just don't know and you want to get to know them a little better. Maybe it's somebody you think is a little weird and maybe you should get to know them too. Maybe it's someone who just drives you absolutely up the wall. I know you have people like that in your life. I have plenty in mine too. But what would it mean to be just like these apostles in the beginning of our gospel, who have crossed over, who have gone out, who have come home, and are ready to tell their stories to one another? That's your assignment. I'll see you next time. Peace.